when one of the most famous men on the planet picked up his phone on a warm Thursday afternoon and pressed play on a voicemail from a number he did not recognize, he had no idea what he was about to hear. It was Thursday, April 17, 2025, Miami, Florida, 3:22 p.m. The afternoon was the kind of Miami afternoon that makes no apologies for itself. Bright and enormous and warm in a way that feels like pressure rather than comfort. The kind of afternoon that presses against every window in a building and reminds you it is there. Outside the hotel suite where Shaquille O'Neal was preparing for an evening appearance, the light off the water was doing what Miami light does, turning everything gold whether it deserves it or not. The suite was quiet in the way of expensive rooms, thick carpet, climate control that works at a whisper, a television that nobody was watching. On the table near the window, a half-finished bottle of water and a room service plate that had been cleared to one side but not removed. The Miami skyline visible through the glass like a postcard of itself. Shaquille O'Neal, 7 feet 1 inch tall, 325 pounds, a man whose presence in any room changes the mathematics of the space, sat on the edge of a hotel sofa that was not designed for someone his size and managed to look comfortable anyway. He wore a black pullover and dark pants. No jewelry. Reading glasses he does not use in public sitting on the cushion beside him. He was not reviewing anything, not on a call, just sitting with the particular quiet that he sometimes finds in hotel rooms in cities he has been coming to for 30 years, when the world has not yet started asking things of him for the evening and the afternoon belongs to nobody. His assistant for travel, Simone Carter, 34 years old, had placed his phone on the table beside the water bottle 20 minutes earlier. 3 missed calls from his publicist, 1 from a business contact, 1 from a number with a 205 area code he did not recognize, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He almost did not press play. He looked at the number for a moment. Unknown, Alabama. He set the phone back down, picked up the water, set the water down, picked up the phone. He pressed play. What came through the speaker was the voice of a child, a girl, young, maybe 10 or 11 years old. The voice was clear and careful in the specific way of children who speak with precision, not because they have been taught to, but because they understand that words are the only tool they have, and they have learned to use tools well. She spoke for 2 minutes and 41 seconds. Shaq listened. Then he pressed play again, and again. He listened to the voicemail 7 times. 7 times in a row, sitting on the edge of a hotel sofa in Miami while the gold afternoon light moved across the carpet and nobody came to the door and the city outside went on being itself. After the 7th time, he set the phone face down on the cushion beside his reading glasses. He pressed both enormous hands flat against his thighs. He looked at the window. He did not speak for a long time. Simone Carter, who had come back into the suite and was standing near the entryway, would describe it later in simple terms. He didn't cry. He didn't say anything. He just sat very still and looked at the window. And I knew, whatever was in that voicemail, this was not going to be a regular evening. Nobody knew who the child was yet. Nobody knew what she had said. Nobody knew why a blind girl in Tuscaloosa, Alabama had called Shaquille O'Neal's personal phone number. A number not listed anywhere publicly. A number that required a chain of deliberate decisions and connections and trust to reach. Nobody knew what she had given up to make the call. Nobody knew what Shaq discovered in the 2 days after he heard her voice that would change the next 3 years of both their lives. Stay with us through this entire video, because what that girl said in 2 minutes and 41 seconds is something that will reach into you and stay there. And what Shaquille O'Neal did, quietly, invisibly, without telling anyone, in the way he always does the things that matter most, is the kind of thing that reminds you what generosity actually looks like when it is not performing for anyone. And when the hidden connection comes out, at the very end, you will understand why he listened 7 times. Let's go back to that hotel suite. Let's stay in it for a moment. Thursday, April 17, 2025, Miami, Florida, 3:22 p.m. The suite is on the 14th floor of a hotel on Brickell Avenue. The carpet is the color of sand. The furniture is the color of expensive neutrality. There are 2 windows that face the bay and 1 that faces the city, and all 3 are doing their best with the Miami afternoon. The room service plate has chicken and rice on it, half finished. The water bottle is room temperature because he rarely drinks cold water in warm climates, a habit nobody ever mentions. There is a jacket laid over the arm of the second chair, dark fabric for the evening. Outside, somewhere below on the bay, a boat is moving. The sound of it barely reaches the 14th floor, but it is there. If you are the kind of person who listens for things, Shaq is that kind of person. He has been that kind of person his entire life, the one who hears things other people in the room are not listening for. His mother raised him to listen. Sergeant Harrison drilled it into him in a different way. Between the two of them, they built a man who is larger than most rooms and quieter in his attention than most people expect. He presses play for the first time at 3:22 p.m. The girl's voice comes through the speaker clearly. She has called from what sounds like a landline. The audio is slightly warmer, slightly fuller than a cell phone call. There is ambient sound in the background. A kitchen, maybe, the low sound of something on a stove, a chair being adjusted. She begins without preamble. Hello. My name is Imani. I am 10 years old. I am calling for Shaquille O'Neal. I know this is probably not the right number, but I am going to try anyway because my grandmother said you should always try the thing that scares you most, and this is the thing that scares me most. A brief pause. The sound of the chair again. I am blind. I have been blind since I was 4 years old. I am not telling you this because I want you to feel sorry for me. I am telling you because it is a fact about me the same way being tall is a fact about you, and I think facts should be said out loud. I found out 6 weeks ago that there is a school in Birmingham for children who are blind, and it has a music program. A real one, with teachers who know how to teach people like me, and I have wanted to learn how to play piano my whole life. The whole life I can remember, which is 6 years because I was 4 when it happened. The school costs money we don't have. My mother works very hard. She works 2 jobs and she never complains where I can hear her, but I can hear a lot of things she doesn't know I can hear. I can hear when she is worried. I can hear when she is tired. I can hear when she does math in her head at the kitchen table at night. I am not calling to ask you for money. I want to be very clear about that. I am calling because I read that you have a PhD in education, and I thought that if anyone would understand why this matters, it might be someone who got a PhD. I am calling because I wanted someone important to know that there is a blind girl in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who wants to play piano more than she wants anything else in the world, and she doesn't know how to make that happen. You don't have to do anything. I just wanted someone to know. I thought it was important for someone to know. So now you know. Thank you for listening. My name is Imani Josephine Cole. I am 10 years old. Goodbye. The message ends. Shaq sits on the edge of the sofa. He presses play again. The second time, he listens differently. He hears the sounds behind her voice, the kitchen, the stove, the chair. He hears the specific quality of a child who has practiced this call, who has said these words before, quietly, to herself, in a room where she thought no one was listening. He presses play a third time, a fourth. By the 5th time he has memorized the order of the sounds. By the 6th he has stopped listening to the words and is listening only to her voice, the texture of it, the places where it is steady and the places where the steadiness costs something. By the 7th time he understands why he cannot stop. He sets the phone down. He looks at the window. The Miami afternoon has not changed. The boat on the bay is gone. The light is still gold. He sits very still for a very long time. But to understand what happened next, what he did in the 36 hours after he heard that voice 7 times, you have to go back. You have to go back past the 4 NBA championships, past the MVP awards and the finals MVPs and the 15 All-Star selections, past the business empire, the Krispy Kremes and the Five Guys, and the car washes, and the real estate, and the investments in things the public does not know he is in, past the PhD in education from Berry University, 2012. Past the movies and the television and the commercials and the brand that turned a boy from Newark into something the whole world knows on sight. You have to go back past all of it. You have to go back past the military bases, Germany and Georgia and Texas and the constant movement, the new schools, the new rooms, the new hallways to navigate in a body that was always the wrong size for whatever space it was in, the desks too small, the chairs too narrow, the world built for people in the middle of the size distribution and nothing to say to the ones at the edges. You have to go back past the being 6 feet tall at 13. The shoes, the stairs, the daily effort of occupying a body the world keeps reminding you is unusual. You have to go back to Newark, New Jersey, March 6, 1972. A hospital. Early March. The specific cold of New Jersey in the moment before it decides to become spring. A 17-year-old woman named Lucille O'Neal holding a newborn son who is enormous even now, even in the first hours of his life. Big hands, long feet, a heaviness that the nurses comment on more than once. She looks at him for a long time. She says something very quiet that only they can hear. Later, when Shaq is famous and people ask what she felt in that moment, she will say, "I looked at him and I thought, the world does not know yet what this is, but it is going to find out." Newark is not an easy place for a 17-year-old mother with a newborn and no money. Lucille works. She works the way people work when they have no choice, which is completely, with no days off and no complaints where her son can hear them. She works retail. She works cleaning. She stretches what she has into what she needs by adding effort and ingenuity to everything. She moves when she has to. She feeds them when she can. She turns the lights off early and calls it an adventure because she has learned something true about hardship, which is that you can give it to people in a form that breaks them, or in a form they can carry, and she is committed to giving it to her son in a form he can carry. When Shaq is around 5, Lucille meets Philip Harrison, Sergeant Philip Harrison, United States Army, a disciplined, serious, solid man who looks at this young, fierce, exhausted, brilliant woman raising this enormous, beautiful boy alone, and decides that is exactly where he belongs. He marries Lucille. He adopts Shaquille. He does not do either thing halfway. Sergeant Harrison teaches the boy one lesson in many different forms across many different years in many different kitchens in many different countries. Being big means nothing. If you don't stand for something, size is just size. The family moves to Germany, then Georgia, then San Antonio. Each time a new school, a new room, the same moment of walking in and being the largest person there by a margin that everyone notices immediately and nobody knows what to do with. He learns to live inside the noticing. He learns to make the choice, every single day, about who he is inside that room. He chooses the version his mother and his stepfather are building. He chooses the version that understands that the size is not the thing. The thing is what you do with it. His mother sits him down in San Antonio when he is 13, already 6 feet, already the thing that coaches see and cannot believe. "People will decide things about you before you open your mouth," she says, not softly, honestly. "They will see the size, and they will feel afraid or threatened, or they will decide you are too much. That is their limitation, not yours. You walk into every room like you belong there. Because you do." She pauses. She looks at her son with the specific look she has been giving him since the hospital, the look that sees what he is going to be. "You are not too much. The world is still catching up to you." He carries those words into every arena, every boardroom, every room where someone looks at the size before they look at the person. And he carries them into a hotel suite in Miami on a warm Thursday afternoon in April of 2025. When he hears the voice of a blind girl in Alabama say something that reaches past all of it and touches something he has not heard anyone say quite that way before. He carries them, and he listens 7 times, and then he sits very still and looks out at the water. Imani Josephine Cole, 10 years old, 5th grade at Westlake Elementary School on Hargrove Road Extension in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Imani has been blind since she was 4 years old. The cause was a rare, rapidly progressing optic nerve condition that her mother's insurance covered incompletely, and that the specialist at UAB Medical Center in Birmingham was honest about. The vision would not come back. Imani was 4 years and 3 months old at the last appointment where they tried everything they had left to try. She does not remember what it was like to see. She remembers only the absence, and she has been building her world inside that absence ever since. She is small for 10. Thin wrists, dark skin, deep and even. Her hair is in 2 large twists that her mother does on Sunday evenings, secured with bright orange bands at the ends. Orange because Imani asked for orange, because orange is the color her grandmother described to her in such detail when she was 5, that Imani decided it was her favorite color without having seen it. She wears a white cane at school. She moves through the hallways of Westlake Elementary with the efficient, practiced confidence of someone who has mapped every surface and every turn, who knows the number of steps from her classroom to the water fountain, and from the water fountain to the gymnasium, and from the gymnasium to the exit that faces the afternoon pickup lane. She is very rarely wrong. She speaks with precision, every sentence considered before delivery, every word the exact one she meant. Her teacher, Mr. Gerald Obie, 41 years old, has been teaching for 16 years and has told Imani's mother twice that he has never met a 10-year-old who used language with the deliberateness that Imani does. He said it admiringly. He meant it. Imani's mother, Paulette Cole, is 33 years old. Paulette works 2 jobs. The first is a morning shift at a medical records processing center on University Boulevard in Tuscaloosa. Data entry, insurance forms, the mechanical precision work of a healthcare system's administrative layer. She is there at 7:30 a.m. and leaves at 1:30 p.m. 6 days a week, not 5. The second job is an evening shift at a retail pharmacy on McFarland Boulevard, 4 nights a week, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. On the nights she works both shifts. Imani's grandmother, Josephine Cole, 64 years old, Imani's namesake, comes to the apartment on Skyland Boulevard to be with Imani from the time school lets out until Paulette gets home. Josephine has early-stage type 2 diabetes and a right hip that was scheduled for replacement surgery 18 months ago and then postponed when the insurance refused the primary surgeon and the secondary option had a 6-month wait. She has been waiting. She does not talk about the hip unless someone asks directly. Paulette drives a 2013 Hyundai Sonata with 198,000 miles on it. The rear door on the passenger side does not open from the inside. Imani knows this and does not try it. The heater works on the driver's side only, which matters in Alabama in January and does not matter in April. The car makes a sound when turning left that Paulette has been meaning to have looked at for 6 months. They live in a 2-bedroom apartment on Skyland Boulevard in East Tuscaloosa. The building is beige brick, functional, unremarkable from outside. Inside the apartment, every object has a specific place, and every specific place is known to Imani. The furniture has not moved in 3 years because Paulette decided, quietly and without discussion, that the predictability of the apartment was more important than her own preference for rearranging things. Paulette owes $3,900 in outstanding medical bills from the UAB specialist visits 18 months ago. She pays $180 a month toward this and has been doing so for 16 months. She has $640 in her checking account. She owes 2 months of Josephine's hip specialist copays totaling $440. She has not told Imani any of this. Imani knows anyway, not the numbers, but the shape of the numbers. She hears the kitchen table math at 10:30 p.m. when Paulette thinks she is asleep. She hears the specific kind of quiet that is not peaceful but calculated. She hears the difference between a silence that is resting and a silence that is adding. 6 weeks before the voicemail, something happens that changes the direction of Imani's thinking. It is a Saturday morning in late February, 10:14 a.m. Imani is in the living room with her grandmother Josephine, who is telling her about a news story she is watching. Josephine narrates television for Imani the way some grandmothers read books, with commentary and context and personal opinion woven through. The news story is about a music school in Birmingham, Alabama. The Alabama Institute for the Blind, on Talladega Highway, has opened a new adaptive music program with a dedicated piano curriculum designed specifically for students who are visually impaired. A music therapist named Dr. Annette Rivers is being interviewed. She is explaining that blind students often have a natural relationship with music through auditory attention. The way hearing compensates, expands, becomes more precise when vision is absent. Imani stops what she is doing. She is sitting on the floor with a braille reader. She puts the reader down. "Grandma," she says. "What school?" "The Alabama Institute for the Blind, baby, up in Birmingham." "Do they teach piano?" "That's what the lady is saying, piano and other things. For children who can't see." Imani is quiet for a long time. "Is it expensive?" she says. Josephine looks at her granddaughter. She knows, because everyone in this family knows, that Imani's questions are never casual. "I don't know," Josephine says honestly. That afternoon, Imani asks Mr. Obi to help her look it up at school on Monday. She gives him the name of the school and the name of the program. On Monday, Mr. Obi looks it up and reads her the relevant information. The annual enrollment for the adaptive music program is $4,400. Transportation from Tuscaloosa to Birmingham, roughly an hour each way, is not covered. There is a scholarship fund, partially depleted for the current year, with applications due in September for the following enrollment cycle. September is 5 months away. The current cycle is already full. Imani sits with this for 2 weeks. She does not tell her mother. She has the specific knowledge of a child who understands that telling her mother will produce one of 2 outcomes. Either her mother will try to find the money, which will cost her something Imani cannot calculate but can hear at the kitchen table, or her mother will gently explain that it is not possible right now, which is a kindness that will hurt them both. She does not want either outcome. So she thinks about the third option. She has heard about Shaquille O'Neal from Mr. Obi, who uses him as a reference when teaching the class about persistence. She has heard that he has a PhD in education. She heard that phrase, PhD in education, and filed it in the place she files things that seem important, which is a very well-organized place because when you cannot see, your interior filing system has to do extra work. A person with a PhD in education, she reasons, would understand what it means for a child to be unable to access education that is built for them. That is what a PhD in education is for. She researches how to reach Shaq through the school library computer, with Mr. Obi's help. She finds a fan mail address. She finds a general inquiry number for his foundation. She tries the foundation number first, gets a voicemail, leaves her name and school and a brief message explaining that she would like to speak to someone about an educational matter. Nobody calls back. She does not blame them. She has thought about why they might not call back, and she has decided it is probably because the voicemail was too brief and did not give them enough reason to call. So she decides to say everything. But here is the part that nobody knew. The phone number Imani called, Shaq's personal cell phone number, not the foundation line, not the public inquiry number, not the fan mail address. She did not find this on the internet. She got it from someone who gave it to her. Someone who said, "If you really mean it, call this number, not the other numbers, this one," and who told her to say everything she was afraid to say. But nobody knew this yet. Not Shaq, not Simone Carter, not anyone. The name of the person who gave Imani that phone number would not come out until 36 hours after Shaq pressed play the 7th time. And when it came out, it would explain everything. Simone Carter started researching Imani Josephine Cole at 4:45 p.m. on Thursday, April 17, 2025. Shaq had come out of his stillness at the window at approximately 4:40 p.m. He had stood up, slowly, the way he always stands, the room adjusting to accommodate the full fact of him, and he had walked to where Simone was standing near the entryway. "Find out about a girl named Imani Cole," he said. "Tuscaloosa, Alabama. 10 years old, blind, looking at a music school in Birmingham." Simone had not asked any questions. She had nodded and opened her laptop. By 6 p.m. she had the information. She placed a printed document on the table beside his evening jacket. Full name, Imani Josephine Cole. Age 10. Enrolled at Westlake Elementary, Tuscaloosa. Condition, optic nerve atrophy. Onset age 4. Diagnosis confirmed UAB Medical Center, Birmingham. Mother, Paulette Renee Cole, age 33. Currently employed at 2 locations. Documented. Grandmother, Josephine Cole, age 64, type 2 diabetes, pending hip replacement surgery. Financial summary. Outstanding medical bills $3,900, current on payment plan, checking account balance, accessed through a source at the family's bank, $640. 2 months behind on specialist copays. The Alabama Institute for the Blind Adaptive Music Program. Annual enrollment $4,400. Scholarship fund for current year closed. Next application cycle opens September. Shaq read through the document slowly. He read it again. He set it down and sat with it for a moment. "She said she wasn't calling to ask for money," he said. "Yes," Simone said. "She called to make sure someone important knew." "Yes." He sat with that for a long time. The Miami evening was coming in now. The light off the bay was changing from gold to amber to the specific coral pink that Miami evenings do for about 20 minutes before the darkness. Through the window, the city was beginning to light itself. "Get me Kevin," he said. Kevin Okafor, 47 years old, foundation director. The man who makes things happen without making noise. The man who has been handling Shaq's quiet charitable work for 11 years without a press release. Shaq took out a notepad and wrote 3 things. He tore the page out and handed it to Simone. She read it. The 3 things were: Alabama Institute for the Blind Adaptive Music Program, full enrollment, Imani Josephine Cole. Josephine Cole hip replacement surgery. Coordinate with UAB Birmingham. All costs. Paulette Cole medical bills. Full balance cleared. Everything through the foundation vehicle, he said. Anonymous. She gets a letter from a trust fund. No name, no contact. What if she tries to find out who sent it? Simone asked. Then she finds a P.O. box in Atlanta that goes nowhere. He paused. That is how it stays. Simone nodded. He walked to the window and stood there for a moment, looking out at the coral pink evening. He was thinking about something, not the call to Kevin, something behind the call. Something in Imani's voice that he had heard 7 times and was still hearing, the way certain sounds stay in the body after the ears have stopped. She had said, "I thought it was important for someone to know." He was thinking about his mother, about Newark, about a woman who turned the lights off early and called it an adventure because she understood that difficulty is a form you can choose to give to the people you love, and she had chosen a form they could carry. Imani Cole had chosen a form she could carry too. She had taken a fact, blindness, poverty, a dream unreachable by any route she could find, and she had made it into a phone call. She had made it into a voice saying, "I am not calling to ask for anything. I am calling because someone should know." That is not a child asking for help. That is a child refusing to disappear. He stayed at the window for a while. Behind him, the room was quiet. The Miami evening did what Miami evenings do. But wait, here is where the story turns. Here is the part nobody knew. 36 hours later, Saturday, April 19th, 2025, 2:17 p.m. Shaq is back in Orlando. He had the evening appearance Thursday, flew back Friday morning, spent the day reviewing foundation matters with Kevin Okafor. The charitable disbursements had been initiated. The Alabama Institute for the Blind had been contacted through an intermediary. The UAB Birmingham Surgical Scheduling Office had received an inquiry from a trust fund administrator about covering Josephine Cole's hip replacement. The medical bill clearance for Paulette was in process. Everything was in motion and nothing had his name on it. He is at his kitchen table Saturday afternoon with coffee and a newspaper he is not really reading when Simone calls. "I found something," she says. "Tell me." "The phone number." "Imani's phone number. The one she called you from. I traced where she got your personal number." Shaq sets the newspaper down. And Simone is quiet for 2 seconds, the kind of quiet that means she is choosing how to deliver something. "She got it from a woman named Dorothy Haynes, 71 years old, retired schoolteacher, Tuscaloosa. Has your number because she taught at a school in Newark, New Jersey in the 1980s. Shaq is completely still. "Simone, yes. What school in Newark?" Another pause. "Chancellor Avenue Elementary School," Simone says. "She taught 2nd grade there from 1983 to 1991. The kitchen is completely quiet. The sprinkler outside is off. The cardinal that sometimes visits the backyard feeder is not there. The entire morning is holding its breath." "I was in 2nd grade in 1979, Shaq said, very quietly. "In Newark." "Yes," Simone said. "But Mr. O'Neal, Dorothy Haynes taught 2nd grade at Chancellor Avenue from 1983, not 1979. Shaq waits. "She taught Lucille O'Neal," Simone says. "Your mother, 1984, adult education night classes. Lucille took GED prep at Chancellor Avenue in 1984 when you were 12. Dorothy Haynes was the teacher." The kitchen is completely quiet. The quiet lasts 11 seconds. "My mother never finished," Shaq said. "No. She got 2/3 of the way through the GED prep and had to stop when the family moved. Dorothy Haynes said she was one of the most naturally intelligent students she ever taught. She said she never forgot her." Shaq pressed one hand flat on the kitchen table. "Dorothy Haynes has been a community education advocate in Tuscaloosa for 30 years. She retired from teaching in 2004. She volunteers at Westlake Elementary now, twice a week. She knows Imani Cole's teacher, Mr. Obi. She heard about Imani through him. She had your number because," Simone paused. "She wrote you a letter 14 years ago when you got your PhD. You wrote back a personal note. You included your number. She kept it." Shaq did not speak for a long time. The hand on the kitchen table was still. "She told Imani to call the number," Simone said. "She said, if you really mean it, call this one, not the other numbers. This one." Shaq closed his eyes. A retired schoolteacher in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, had taught his mother in an adult education night class in Newark, New Jersey in 1984. His mother had not finished. She had moved. She had never forgotten, probably, the way people never forget the things they came close to. 40 years later, that same teacher had heard about a blind girl in Tuscaloosa who wanted to learn piano and couldn't reach the right person. And she had gone to a drawer or a box or wherever she kept things that mattered, and she had found a note from a man whose mother she had tried to teach to read better in a church basement in Newark in 1984, and she had given the little girl the number. The thread ran 40 years. Newark to Tuscaloosa, a mother's interrupted education to a daughter's impossible dream, a school teacher who kept a note. Shaq sat in his kitchen for a long time. He did not speak. The hand on the table was very still. 2 weeks later, on Saturday, May 3, 2025, a letter arrived at the apartment on Skyland Boulevard in East Tuscaloosa. Paulette Cole picked it up at the mailbox at 8:15 a.m. before her morning shift. It was a business envelope, plain white, return address a P.O. box in Atlanta, Georgia. She opened it standing in the parking lot. Inside was a letter from something called the Meridian Forward Trust. The letter informed her that the trust had designated her family as a recipient of charitable educational and medical assistance. Enclosed was a confirmation of payment of her outstanding medical balance of $3,900. Enclosed also was a confirmation of enrollment for Imani Josephine Cole in the Alabama Institute for the Blind Adaptive Music Program, full annual tuition covered, effective the coming fall semester. And a third document, a confirmation that the UAB Birmingham Surgical Scheduling Office had received full payment for Josephine Cole's hip replacement surgery, scheduled for July 14th. Paulette stood in the parking lot for a long time. She read the letter 3 times. She did not go inside. She stood in the parking lot with the letter in her hands, and the Tuscaloosa morning light on her face, and the sound of the city beginning its Saturday, and she stood there long enough that the letter went warm from her hands. She called Josephine first. Josephine answered on the second ring, and listened and did not say anything for 40 seconds, and then said, very quietly, "The Lord uses what He has available." Paulette sat down on the parking lot curb. She did not cry. She would cry later, in the apartment bathroom with the door closed while Imani was in the living room and would not hear her over the sound of the television. The specific crying of a person who has been carrying something heavy for so long that when it is lifted, the body does not know how to stand up straight right away. But right now she sat on the curb and breathed and let the Tuscaloosa morning be what it was. She spent 10 days trying to find out who sent the letter. She called the phone number on the trust letterhead. She was politely given no information. She searched the trust name online and found a registered Georgia entity with no public profile. She called Mr. Obi. She called Dorothy Haynes. Dorothy Haynes, when she called, was quiet for a moment. "Did Imani make a phone call?" Dorothy asked. "She told me," Paulette said. "Last week. She told me she had called someone. She wouldn't tell me who." "Then you know enough," Dorothy said. "Some things are best left where they are." Paulette sat with the phone against her ear for a moment. "Will you at least tell me if there is someone I should thank?" Dorothy Haynes, 71 years old, retired teacher from Newark, New Jersey and Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and everywhere the work takes you when you believe that education belongs to everyone, was quiet for a moment. "Thank your daughter," she said. "She did this. She made the call." Everything else followed from that. Paulette was quiet for a long time. "She's 10 years old," she said. "Yes," Dorothy said, "she is." On Monday, September 8, 2025, Imani Josephine Cole was driven from Tuscaloosa to Birmingham by her mother in a 2013 Hyundai Sonata with 108,000 miles on it and a rear door that does not open from the inside and a heater that only works on the driver's side. The Alabama Institute for the Blind on Talladega Highway is a low building set back from the road with a long concrete path from the parking area to the entrance, smooth and precisely engineered, the kind of path that a person who knows how to use a white cane can navigate without uncertainty. Imani navigated it without uncertainty. Dr. Annette Rivers, 48 years old, the music therapist Imani had heard on the television broadcast 6 months earlier, met her at the entrance. "Imani," she said, "we have been looking forward to you." Imani stopped walking. She turned her face slightly toward the sound of Dr. Rivers' voice. "How did you know it was me?" she said. "Your teacher described you very precisely," Dr. Rivers said. "He said, she will be the one who walks like she knows exactly where she is going." Imani was quiet for a moment. "I always know where I am going," she said. "I just don't always know how to get there." Dr. Rivers smiled. "That's exactly what music is for," she said. The first lesson happened at 10 a.m. in a practice room with a Yamaha upright piano against the east wall. The room smelled like wood polish and old books and the specific neutrality of a space that has been used seriously. Dr. Rivers placed Imani's hands on the keys. She played a C major chord, and she watched what happened in Imani's face. What happened in Imani's face was the specific opening that happens when something enters through one sense and resonates in all the others. Her chin dropped slightly. Her breathing slowed. Her shoulders, which had been held precisely as they always were, controlled, navigational, functional, released an inch. Dr. Rivers would write in her session notes that evening, "Students' auditory processing of harmonic structures is extraordinary. First session suggests musicality that exceeds anything I have encountered in a decade of adaptive instruction." The instrument and this child have been waiting for each other. After the lesson, Paulette was waiting in the hallway. Imani came out of the practice room and stopped at the sound of her mother's breathing. "Mama," she said. Baby. It was real, Imani said, not excitedly, precisely. The way she said all important facts. The sound was real. It was outside me, in the room. Paulette pressed her hands flat against her thighs. She breathed very carefully. I know, she said. I have been hearing it in my head for 6 years, Imani said. I didn't know it would feel different when it was outside, but it feels different. Paulette did not say anything for a moment. She crossed to her daughter and put her arms around her and stayed there. Imani put one hand on her mother's arm. They stayed in the hallway of the Alabama Institute for the Blind for a long time. On the same Monday, September 8, 2025, at 10 a.m., the exact moment Imani's hands touched the piano keys for the first time, Shaquille O'Neal was sitting in his office in Orlando reviewing foundation disbursements. He did not know the lesson was happening at exactly that moment. He did not know the time, or the room, or the specific opening of Imani's face. He knew only that it was the fall semester, that the enrollment had gone through, that somewhere in Birmingham, on a Monday morning, a blind girl was being given the thing she had called someone important to make sure they knew she needed. He sat at his desk with his coffee and his documents. The Florida morning outside was doing what it does. He was not thinking about any of this consciously. But somewhere behind everything, he was listening again. The way he had been listening since April 17th, since the 7th time he pressed play. The way certain voices, once heard, do not stop. A 10-year-old girl had called him to say, I am not asking for anything, I just wanted someone to know. He had listened 7 times, and then he had moved. Quietly, the way he always moves, without announcement, without a press release or a statement or a foundation blog post or a social media moment, without his name attached to anything, the way his mother moved when she needed to move, toward the thing, not toward the credit for the thing. The way people move when they understand that generosity is not a performance, it is a direction. Dorothy Haynes is the one who tells the story. Not immediately, not carelessly. She sits with it for 3 months. She is 71 years old, and she has been a teacher for a very long time, and she knows the difference between a story that belongs to the person who lived it and a story that belongs to the world. But she also knows what she has seen in 40 years of teaching children in underfunded schools in cities that do not always remember that they contain children. She has seen what happens to children who have gifts the system cannot receive. She has watched them diminish. She watched a woman named Lucille learn to read more confidently in a church basement in Newark in 1984, and then move away before she could finish and never come back. She has thought about that woman across 40 years, and she has watched a blind girl in Tuscaloosa make a phone call that changed everything. Not because she asked for anything, because she refused to let the thing go unnamed. In December 2025, Dorothy Haynes writes a piece for the Tuscaloosa News. She does not use Imani's full name. She does not use Shaq's name. She uses the shape of the story. A teacher, a student's mother, 40 years. A child who called someone important not to ask for help, but to make sure someone knew. The way things travel across time, when someone decides not to let them disappear. The piece is republished by 3 national education publications. The Tuscaloosa News piece alone receives 340,000 online views in 4 days. Someone at ESPN connects the dots. A journalist named Kara Washington files a piece in January 2026. The thread. How Shaq's mother's 1984 night school teacher connected a blind girl to a dream 40 years later. Within 48 hours, the piece has 12.4 million views. Shaq does not comment. His publicist releases one statement, 3 sentences. He supports educational access. He asks for the family's privacy. No further comment. What follows is its own story. The Alabama Institute for the Blind Adaptive Music Program receives 214 scholarship donation inquiries in the 2 weeks following the ESPN piece. A National Foundation for Blind Children's Education announces a $280,000 grant to expand the program to 3 additional Alabama locations. Dr. Annette Rivers gives 4 interviews in which she does not discuss Imani specifically but speaks at length about what adaptive music education does for blind students who have been told, by the structure of the world around them, that music is not built for them. Dorothy Haynes is asked by the Alabama Department of Education to speak at a statewide education conference in February 2026. She speaks for 22 minutes about what it means to keep a phone number, about the specific, incalculable value of maintaining a connection across time to someone you taught who moved away before they could finish, about Lucille. She does not say the name, but the people in the room understand. And Josephine Cole, 64 years old, grandmother of Imani, namesake and constant companion and narrator of Orange to a girl who needed to love something she had never seen. Josephine Cole has her hip replacement surgery on July 14, 2025. She is walking without the cane she had been borrowing from a neighbor by August. She walks Imani to the car on the first day of school in September and does not favor her right leg. She tells Imani the operation went fine when Imani asks. Of course it did, Imani says. Everything is going fine. How do you know? Josephine says. I can hear it, Imani says. In the way you're walking. Josephine laughs. It is a Tuesday morning in March 2026, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The morning is the specific pale blue that March mornings in Alabama are before the warmth really arrives, the blue that means winter is ending and has mostly decided to end even if it has not told spring yet. Imani Josephine Cole, now 11 years old, is in a practice room at the Alabama Institute for the Blind. She is in her second semester. Dr. Rivers has moved her to an advanced curriculum 3 weeks ahead of schedule. She is working on a simplified Bach prelude, the same one, Dr. Rivers decided that Bach's oldest daughter is believed to have learned first. She chose it for Imani not because of that history but because of its structure, a repeating pattern that rewards a student who listens deeply, who can hear the logic underneath the notes. Imani hears the logic underneath the notes. Her hands move across the keys. The right hand is more coordinated than 3 months ago. The left hand, always more precise because of the careful deliberateness she applies to everything, lays down the bass with a steadiness that Dr. Rivers has noted twice in her session reports. The room is quiet except for the prelude. The March morning comes through the practice room window. In Orlando, Florida, on the same March Tuesday, Shaquille O'Neal is at his kitchen table. The coffee is warm, the sprinkler is off. The cardinal that sometimes visits the backyard feeder is there today, very red, very still, holding itself with the focused intensity of a creature that takes the business of being alive seriously. He opens the morning mail, near the bottom, a plain white envelope. Return address, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. He does not recognize the return address, but he knows the handwriting. She has written him before, once in November, to tell him that the lessons were going well. Once in January, to tell him that she had started writing her own musical notation in Braille, a system she and Dr. Rivers were developing together. He opens it slowly. Inside is a single sheet of paper, Braille embossed, with a typed translation taped below each line. Someone, Dr. Rivers probably, has typed the translation so he can read it. 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph is about the Bach prelude. She describes what she hears in it in 4 sentences that are so precise and so particular that Shaq reads them twice. She describes the logic underneath the notes. She describes how the pattern teaches you where it is going before it arrives. She describes the specific feeling of being inside something that has an internal logic you can follow with your hands. The second paragraph is 5 sentences. My grandmother told me that you knew someone once who was trying to learn something and had to stop in the middle. I don't know who that person is, but I want them to know that stopping in the middle is not the same as not finishing. Sometimes the thing gets finished by someone else. That counts. Shaq reads it once. He sits for a long time. The cardinal on the bird feeder turns its head, and then Shaq does something he does not often do, something private and specific to this moment. He smiles. Not the large one. Not the room-filling laugh the cameras know. Not the one that fills arenas and has been in 30 commercials and on the face of a bobblehead in airport gift shops. The quiet one. The one that looks like something arriving home. He folds the letter carefully. He places it in the drawer where he keeps the voicemail transcript. He had Simone transcribe it the morning after he listened to it 7 times. The drawer where he keeps the things that belong only to him. He closes the drawer. He picks up his coffee. The Florida morning continues outside, bright and committed and warm. And in a practice room in Birmingham, Alabama, a blind girl plays a Bach prelude on a Tuesday morning in March. And the sound goes into the room and stays there. And it is real. And it is outside her. And it has been outside her since September. And it will be outside her for a very long time. Because somewhere out there right now, there is a child who has found the thing. Not the thing everyone expects them to find. Not the version that is obvious or easy or already approved by the world around them. The version that belongs specifically to them. And they do not know how to reach the room where that thing lives. Not because the room does not exist, but because there is a distance between where they are and where the room is, and the distance has numbers in it, dollars, diagnosis, waiting lists, miles, and the numbers are too large for them to cross alone. And they are sitting with that, quietly, in the specific posture of a child who is carrying something the world has not yet offered to help them carry. Imani Cole sat with it for 6 weeks, and then she made a phone call. She did not call to ask for anything. She called because she believed that someone knowing was already something. She called because she had been taught, by her grandmother's story of Orange, by Mr. Obie's belief in her words, by Dorothy Haynes, who kept a phone number for 40 years, that the act of naming a thing clearly and sending it toward the world is itself a form of action. She was right. Shaquille O'Neal grew up in a world that had no ready space for a body like his. He grew up in rooms that were the wrong size, and schools that were the wrong fit, and a world that was built for someone else's measurements. He grew up with a mother who chose the form of hardship carefully, the form her son could carry, not the form that would break him. He grew up with a stepfather who said, "Being big means nothing if you don't stand for something." He grew up with his mother's voice saying, "You are not too much. The world is still catching up to you." He sat in a hotel suite in Miami and pressed play 7 times on a 2-minute and 41-second voicemail from a 10-year-old blind girl in Alabama who called to say, "I am not asking for anything. I just thought someone important should know." He listened 7 times, and then he moved, quietly, in the direction of the person, not toward the record, not toward the announcement, toward the thing that needed to happen, and toward the person it needed to happen for. The way his mother always moved. The way the people who actually understand weight always move. Here is what this story teaches. It is not about Shaq's generosity, though it is real and it is remarkable. It is not about Imani's courage, though it is real and it is extraordinary. It is about the thread, the invisible thread that runs between a night school classroom in Newark in 1984 and a practice room in Birmingham in 2025. The thread that runs through a woman named Lucille who stopped in the middle of something, through a teacher named Dorothy who kept a note for 40 years, through a blind girl who refused to let her dream go unnamed, through a voicemail that traveled 800 miles and made a man sit still long enough to hear it 7 times. The world is full of threads, most of them invisible, most of them running across distances that seem impossibly large, most of them requiring one person, somewhere in the middle, to decide not to let go. Dorothy Haynes kept a number. That is the whole story. Everything else is what happened because of that one decision. Keep the number. Stay in contact. Remember the person who stopped in the middle. Send the thread toward the next person who needs it. Because you do not know, and you cannot know, and you will not know for 40 years what your keeping of a thing will make possible for someone you have not yet met. You become Dorothy Haynes. You become the thread. And the world does not lose what you were carrying. Before you go, drop a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from. We have people watching from everywhere this story traveled, and it traveled far. From Tuscaloosa and Birmingham and Newark and Miami and everywhere those cities connect to through their own invisible threads. From places where there is a child who found the thing and does not yet have the room where the thing lives. From places where someone is sitting with a number in a drawer and has not yet understood that the number matters. We read every comment, every single one, and we love knowing where our community is watching from. If this story moved you, if it made you think of a thread you have been holding and have not yet passed on, or a dream you were told was too expensive or too far away or not built for someone like you, please hit the like button right now. 1 second. It helps this reach someone tonight who needs to hear that naming the thing clearly is already an act of power. Because right now, somewhere, there is a child who has found the thing, who is sitting with it quietly, who has not yet made the call, who does not yet know that calling is enough. That someone important knowing is already something. This story is for them. If you are new here, welcome, subscribe. Join a community that believes that the things we carry across time, phone numbers, promises, the names of people who stopped in the middle of something, are the most important things we carry. Share this with one person, the one who is keeping a thread, the one who stopped in the middle of something and has not been told that someone else might finish it, the one who needs to hear that 40 years is not too long, because that is how it travels. One thread, one number, one voice in a voicemail saying, "I am not asking for anything. I just wanted someone to know." Now click on the video on your screen, because the next story is something you are absolutely not going to see coming. We will see you there. There is something that happens in the week after Josephine Cole's hip surgery that nobody planned for and nobody announced, and that does not appear in any foundation document or charitable disbursement record. It happens on a Wednesday afternoon in late July 2025, July 23rd. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, 4:30 p.m. Josephine Cole is 9 days out from surgery. She is moving carefully but moving. The physical therapist from UAB Home Health comes 3 times a week. She is doing her exercises. She is sleeping better than she has in 2 years. The hip, she tells Paulette, feels like being given back something she did not realize how much she had lost. On this particular Wednesday afternoon, Josephine is sitting in the living room of the apartment on Skyland Boulevard. Imani is home from school. They are doing what they do on Wednesday afternoons, which is Josephine describes things to Imani and Imani asks questions until the description is complete enough to hold. Today's subject, at Imani's request, is the sound of a piano, not the way it looks, not the mechanics, the sound, the specific texture of it. Josephine is not musical. She cannot describe the notes or the theory, but she can describe what a piano sounds like from the inside of a room when someone is playing it, the way it fills a space, the way certain notes hang in the air longer than others, the way a chord resolves and you feel it in your chest before you understand what you just felt. Imani listens with her whole body. She always listens with her whole body. But today there is something additional in her listening, an anticipation, a leaning toward the description, because she knows that in 6 weeks she will be sitting at a piano herself for the first time. She knows what is coming. She is already moving toward it. Does it sound like it's in a hurry? Imani asks. Depends on the song, Josephine says. Some songs are in a hurry. Some songs are the opposite of in a hurry. What's the opposite of in a hurry? Patient, Josephine says. Like it knows where it's going and doesn't need to prove it. Imani thinks about this. That's what I want to play, she says, the patient kind. Josephine smiles. She has been smiling more since the surgery. The pain that had been a constant low presence in her body for 2 years is gone, and its absence is doing something to her face that Paulette has noticed and not said anything about because some things are better simply received. You'll play whatever kind you want, Josephine says. That's what the whole thing is for. Imani picks at the orange elastic at the end of one of her braids. She does this when she is thinking about something that has more than one layer. Grandma, she says, do you think the man listened to my voicemail? Josephine is quiet for a moment. I think somebody did, she says carefully. I think it was him, Imani says. I think it was him because of how things happened. The way things happened doesn't feel like chance. It feels like someone heard something and decided. Josephine watches her granddaughter. Okay, she says. If it was him, Imani says, I want him to know something. What? I want him to know that my grandmother had surgery on her hip and she is walking again, and she told me last week what orange smells like. She said it smells like something you want more of right after you have it, and I thought that was very beautiful. Josephine's eyes fill. She does not let them fall. I'll remember that, she says. Good, Imani says, because when I learn to play the patient kind of piano, I'm going to play something for you that smells like orange. Josephine laughs. A full, real laugh, the kind that belongs to a person whose body no longer hurts. And outside the apartment on Skyland Boulevard, the Tuscaloosa afternoon continues. Cars on the street. Children somewhere distant. The sky, the specific deep blue of a southern summer afternoon that has decided to be beautiful. In September, when school lets out on the Friday before the first Monday of the semester at the Alabama Institute for the Blind, Dorothy Haynes waits in the Westlake Elementary pickup area for her weekly volunteer shift and watches Josephine Cole push Imani's wheelchair. Imani does not use it every day, only when she is tired or the distances are longer, toward the waiting Hyundai Sonata. Dorothy watches them from across the parking lot. She is 71 years old. She has been a teacher for most of her adult life. She has taught in Newark and in Tuscaloosa and in every building between them in terms of the kind of effort it takes to stand in front of children who have been told by the structure of the world that the things they want are not available for people like them, and to say, that is not the final word. She watches Josephine help Imani into the Sonata. She watches the car pull out of the pickup area. She thinks about a church basement in Newark in 1984. A woman named Lucille who wrote in large, careful letters and read back what she had written with the pride of someone who knew that reading was not a small thing. Who stopped coming in March when her family moved. Who never came back. Dorothy had wondered about her for 40 years. Not with grief, with the specific, unresolved wondering of a teacher who knows that not every story has an ending they can see. She had not known, until Kara Washington's ESPN piece in January, that Lucille O'Neal's son had gotten a PhD in education. She had read that piece sitting at her kitchen table on a Tuesday morning with her coffee, and she had had to put the coffee down. She had not known that the note she wrote him 14 years ago, and the personal note he sent back with his number, had been sitting in her filing cabinet alongside the most important things she had kept across 40 years of teaching. She had not known, until it happened, that giving that number to a 10-year-old blind girl who wanted to play piano would close a loop that had been open since 1984. She did not know if it was closure. She thought maybe it was something better than closure. Maybe it was continuation. Lucille had stopped in the middle of something, and her son had grown up to be someone who understood the cost of that, who understood, from the inside, from his own life, from watching her, what it means to want a thing and be unable to reach it. And so when a 10-year-old girl called him to say, "I am not asking for anything, I just want someone to know," he knew what she was really saying. He knew because his mother had said it too, not in words, in the way she turned the lights off early and called it an adventure, in the way she stretched rice into meals and called it cooking, in the way she carried the not finishing and the moving away and the wanting to go back without letting any of it touch her son where it would break him. She had been saying, "I am not asking for anything, but someone should know." Shaq had been listening his entire life. He just had not known, until April 17, 2025, that the voice saying it would be a 10-year-old blind girl from Alabama. Dorothy Haynes walks back into the school. The parking lot empties. The Tuesday afternoon continues. And somewhere in Birmingham, in a practice room that smells like wood polish and old books, a piano sits waiting for Monday. And a thread, 40 years long, continues, because someone decided to keep the number, and someone decided to make the call, and someone decided to listen. 7 times. That is the whole story. Everything else is what a story becomes when someone refuses to let it end before it is finished. There is a Saturday in October 2025 that matters. October 18th. Birmingham, Alabama, 11 a.m. Imani is in her 6th week of instruction at the Alabama Institute for the Blind. Dr. Rivers has moved her to a new piece. Not Bach this time. Something simpler in structure but deeper in feeling. A traditional melody that Dr. Rivers has arranged in a way that works with the specific coordination Imani has available, that plays to her strengths, which are absolute pitch and structural intelligence, and the particular gift of a person who has been listening carefully to everything for 6 years. Paulette is in the waiting area outside the practice room. She brings a book to these Saturdays now. She has been bringing a book for 6 weeks. She never reads more than a page. She listens through the door. The piano sounds like the patient kind. On this particular Saturday, Dr. Rivers comes out of the practice room at 12:15 p.m., 15 minutes before the session is scheduled to end. She closes the door softly behind her. Paulette looks up. She is playing on her own, Dr. Rivers says quietly. I stepped out to let her have it. Paulette listens. Through the door, muffled but clear, the melody continues. The left hand steady, the right hand finding the melody not perfectly but truly, with the specific honesty of someone who is not performing technique, but telling something. Paulette puts the book down. She presses both hands flat on her thighs. She listens. Dr. Rivers stands beside her, and also listens. Neither of them speaks. The melody continues. It does not hurry. It knows where it is going. It does not need to prove it. When it ends, there is a brief silence from inside the practice room. Then Imani's voice, to no one. Okay, she says, just that. The voice of a person who has confirmed something to herself. Paulette presses one hand over her mouth. She is not crying. She is doing the opposite of crying. She is absorbing something so carefully that there is no room for the tears yet. They will come later, in the car, on the highway between Birmingham and Tuscaloosa, when Imani is asleep in the passenger seat with her head against the window, and Paulette can let the drive hold her. Dr. Rivers looks at her. She is going to be extraordinary, Dr. Rivers says. Not encouragingly, matter-of-factly. The specific register of a professional stating something they have confirmed and no longer consider uncertain. Paulette nods. She cannot speak right now. She nods, and she listens, and the October Saturday morning is outside the window, and Birmingham is going about its Saturday, and inside the practice room a blind girl is playing the patient kind of piano for an empty room because she needs to know what it sounds like when it belongs only to her. In November 2025, the Alabama Institute for the Blind Adaptive Music Program receives a grant expansion that adds 3 new scholarship slots for the coming academic year. Dr. Rivers hires a second adaptive music instructor. The program, which had 12 students in September, is now being inquired about from families in 4 states. A music education journalist at the American Music Therapy Association Journal contacts Dr. Rivers about writing a profile of the program's adaptive approach to teaching piano to visually impaired children. Dr. Rivers agrees to the profile on the condition that no students are identified. The profile, published in January 2026, is titled The Architecture of Sound: How Blind Students Experience Music Through Structural Intelligence. It is one of the most read pieces in the journal's history. 7 other institutions contact Dr. Rivers about implementing similar programs. Imani Josephine Cole does not know any of this. She knows only that she has a lesson on Monday, and she has been practicing the piece, and she has a new idea about the bridge section that she wants to show Dr. Rivers. She practices on the 61-key keyboard that appeared in her bedroom in May, the one whose note on the delivery box said only, "For Imani, keep playing." She practices in the mornings before school and in the evenings after. She practices on Sundays when the apartment is quiet, and Josephine is at church, and Paulette is at the pharmacy, and the Skyland Boulevard morning is doing what it does. She practices the patient kind. She practices the kind that knows where it is going. She practices until the sound is not just outside her but around her, in the room, filling the specific dimensions of the apartment she knows by heart, and she can hear it bouncing back from the walls she has never seen, and the ceiling she has never seen, and the window she has never looked through. She can hear the room. She has always been able to hear the room. Now the room hears her back. On the Tuesday morning in March 2026, when Shaq reads her second letter at his kitchen table, the letter about Bach and the thread and stopping in the middle, he sits for a long time afterward. He is thinking about his mother. He thinks about his mother often. More than he has said in any interview, more than the PhD acceptance speech covered, more than the few times he has let the cameras close enough to see it. He thinks about Newark in 1984. He would have been 12. They had been in San Antonio by then. The Harrison family, the new configuration of it, the one that had Sergeant Harrison in it and was beginning to work the way that family would work for the rest of his childhood. His mother would have taken the night classes in Newark before they moved. He would not have known. She would not have told him, not because she was hiding it but because it was hers. The way she kept certain things for herself, the dignified privacy of a woman who carries her own ambitions quietly. He thinks about her stopping, not by choice, by necessity. The necessity of a family moving, of logistics being what they are, of the world not pausing its demands while you try to finish something you started in a church basement at night after your son was asleep. He thinks about what it would have cost her, not visibly, inwardly. The specific cost of being 2/3 of the way through something and having to set it down. He thinks about a blind girl playing piano in Birmingham. He thinks about a letter that says, stopping in the middle is not the same as not finishing. Sometimes the thing gets finished by someone else. That counts. He sits at the kitchen table for a long time. The cardinal is on the feeder. The Florida morning is doing what it does. He thinks, she is 10 years old. She is blind. She has never met me. She does not know about my mother. She does not know about Newark or the church basement or the night classes. And yet she knew. The way children sometimes know the thing you most need to hear. Not because they have information, but because they are listening in a direction that adults have learned to stop listening. He picks up his coffee. He sits with it for a while. Outside, the Florida morning is bright and warm and specific and entirely itself. And in a practice room in Birmingham, and a bedroom in Tuscaloosa, and a kitchen table in Orlando, and a filing cabinet in a house where a 71-year-old retired teacher keeps the things that matter, the thread continues. 40 years long and still running. Because someone decided not to let go. And that is the story of the blind girl who made a phone call she was afraid to make, and the man who listened 7 times, and the thread that connected them across 40 years and 2 states, and 1 interrupted night class in a church basement in Newark. That is the whole story. That is all of it. Keep the thread, pass it on, stay connected to the people who stopped in the middle, because you do not know, you cannot know, what your keeping of that connection will make possible for someone who has not yet made the call. Before you go, drop a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from. We have viewers everywhere this story traveled. We read every single one. If this story reached you, if it made you think of a thread you are holding, a number in a drawer, a person who stopped in the middle of something, please hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second. And it helps this reach someone tonight who needs to hear that naming the thing clearly is already an act of power. If you are new here, welcome, subscribe, join a community that believes that the threads we carry across time are the most important things we carry. Share this with one person today, the one who kept the number, the one who is about to make the call, the one who stopped in the middle and has not been told that it counts anyway. Because that is how kindness travels. One thread, one number, one voice in a voicemail saying, "I am not asking for anything, I just wanted someone to know." Click on the video on your screen right now because the next story is something you are absolutely not going to see coming. We will see you there. See you soon. There is a final thing that happens. It happens quietly, the way all the things in this story happen. In February 2026, 2 weeks after Kara Washington's ESPN piece reaches 12.4 million views, Shaq receives a letter. Not a voicemail this time, a letter. It comes in a plain white envelope from a P.O. box in Tuscaloosa. The handwriting on the outside is in Braille, with a typed address label below it. He opens it at his kitchen table on a Monday morning, February 9, 2026. The Florida morning is doing what it does. The coffee is warm. The Cardinal is not on the feeder yet. It usually arrives by 9, and it is only 8:40. Inside is a single page, Braille embossed, with the typed translation taped below each line in the careful format he now recognizes from the previous 2 letters. 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph is about a piece she has been learning, not Bach, not the traditional melody, something new, a composition that Dr. Rivers has been teaching her from the work of a 20th-century composer who wrote specifically for the piano's capacity for silence. Imani writes about the silence. She writes, "I used to think music was the sound. I understand now that it is also the space between the sound. That is the part I was not able to hear until I was in a room with a real piano and a real teacher and real time." The second paragraph is about Dorothy Haynes. She does not say Dorothy's name. She does not need to. She writes, "The woman who gave me your number told me something after everything happened. She said she had been a teacher for 40 years, and the most important lesson she ever learned was this: you never know which thread you are holding. You only know you should not let go." I have been thinking about that. I think she is right. I think the whole world is made of threads, and most people do not know which ones they are holding. But they are holding them, and if they hold on long enough, someone on the other end will feel it. The third paragraph is 4 sentences. "I do not know if I will ever meet you. That is okay. I called you because I needed someone important to know, and you knew, and that was enough. But I want you to know one more thing. When I play the patient kind of piano now, I play it for the people who stopped in the middle. I think about them, and I play slowly, and I let it take all the time it needs. That is for them." Shaq reads the letter once. He sets it down. He picks up his coffee. He does not move for a long time. The Cardinal arrives at the feeder at 9:03, very red, very still, taking the business of its morning with total seriousness. Shaq watches it. He thinks about his mother, about Newark, about a church basement in 1984 that he was not in and did not know about for 40 years. He thinks about a woman who stopped in the middle. He thinks, she did not know, she could not have known, that her stopping would be one of the threads, that her son would grow up to hear a voice through a speaker that would connect back to that church basement across 40 years, that something she could not finish would be finished by a blind girl in Alabama who had never heard her name. He thinks, she would have understood Imani. She would have recognized her immediately, the precision, the refusal to disappear, the calling of someone important not to ask for help but to make sure someone knew. She would have said, "That is the right call to make." He puts the letter in the drawer with the others. He closes the drawer. The Cardinal on the feeder regards the yard with total focused attention. The Florida morning is warm and bright and entirely itself. In Tuscaloosa, Alabama, on the same Monday morning, Imani Josephine Cole is getting ready for school. She is 11 now. She moves through the apartment on Skyland Boulevard with the practiced certainty of someone who has mapped every surface and every turn and every step between here and every place she needs to be. She knows the number of steps from her bedroom to the kitchen, from the kitchen to the front door, from the front door to the car. She knows, now, the number of steps from the parking lot to the practice room at the Alabama Institute for the Blind. She is learning the number of steps from the practice room to the concert hall, where Dr. Rivers has told her that in the spring semester there will be a small showcase. 12 students, 60 seats, families. Imani has been thinking about what she will play, not the Bach, not the traditional melody. Something she has been working on that is not assigned, that belongs only to her, a piece she has been building from inside her head the way she built everything before September. Except now she has the piano, and she can hear it outside herself as she builds it. It is the patient kind. It knows where it is going. It has something in the bridge section that she will show Dr. Rivers on Monday, and that she believes is the right thing, the thing that makes the piece complete, the thing she has been listening for since the first time Dr. Rivers played a chord, and her chin dropped, and something opened. She picks up her white cane. She walks to the front door. She opens it. The Tuscaloosa morning is pale and cool, and doing what February Alabama mornings do, which is hold the last of the cold in one hand, and the beginning of the warmth in the other, and not yet decide which to offer. Imani steps outside. She counts the steps to the car. She knows exactly how many there are. She has always known. And the thread continues. 40 years, and still running. Newark to Tuscaloosa to Birmingham to Orlando and back again. Through a church basement, and a phone number, and a voicemail, and a practice room, and a drawer where the things that matter are kept. Through a woman who stopped in the middle, and a girl who refused to, and the man who listened 7 times. That is all of it. That is the story of the blind girl who sent Shaq a voicemail instead of a letter, and why he listened to it 7 times, and what he found when he stopped listening and started moving. Keep the number, hold the thread, play the patient kind. We will see you in the next story. Before you go, one last thing, drop a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from. We have viewers in Lagos, London, Louisiana, in Tuscaloosa, and Birmingham, and Newark, and Miami, and every place a thread runs between. In places where someone is holding a number they do not yet know matters. In places where a child has found the thing and has not yet made the call. We read every comment, every single one, and we love knowing where this community is reaching. If this story moved you, if it made you think of a thread you are holding, a connection you have been meaning to maintain, a person who stopped in the middle of something and deserves to know the story did not end there, please hit the like button right now. 1 second. It helps this reach someone tonight who needs it. If you are new here, welcome. Subscribe and join a community that believes the invisible threads between people are the most important infrastructure in the world. Share this with one person today. The one who kept a phone number for 40 years without knowing why. The one who is about to make the call they are afraid to make. The one who needs to hear, naming the thing clearly is already the first act of making it real, because that is exactly how it travels. One thread, one voice, one decision to keep holding on. Now click on the video appearing on your screen right now because the next story is something you are absolutely not going to see coming. We will see you there. See you soon.